Hello, everybody. My name is Larissa, and I'm a staff scientist with Science North. And this is the first in a series of programs that will teach you about the importance of our cells and how the immune system works within works with our cells and helps protect our cells from pathogens. So today's program is geared towards grades 11 and 12. And so this means that these programs for the older grades are going to be talking a lot about how our cells function with DNA and RNA and all of that stuff as well too. So Science North has received funding from the Public Health Agency of Canada to increase confidence in vaccines. And we have a campaign called Give Vaccines a Shot. We'll be offering these school programs to help you learn about your immune system staying healthy and the important role that vaccines play in good public health strategy. Before we continue on, I'd like to first acknowledge that I am presenting near Sudbury, Ontario, and near Science North. I'm presenting from home, actually. And I would like to do a land acknowledgement. Science North and Dynamic Earth are situated on the traditional and ancestral lands of Atikamekw and Anishinaabe and Wampanoag First Nation in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory. We give thanks to the Indigenous peoples who have cared for this land since time immemorial and pay respect to their traditions, ways of knowing, and acknowledge their many contributions to innovations in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, past and present. We also recognize the Métis Nation of Ontario for their historic and ongoing contributions. We commit to deepening engagement, relationships, and partnerships to advance truth and reconciliation, honor and reflect Indigenous ways of knowing, grow economic opportunities, and collaborate with Indigenous peoples as partners to inspire all people to be engaged with science in the world around them. Please take the time to reflect and recognize the lands where you are located, as they might not be the same as my own. All right, I'm just going to share my Mentimeter. Hold on a second here. My Mentimeter code. So during today's presentation, I will be asking you to do some things with me. There could be many viewers at the same time. And there is also a bit of a delay between what I am saying and how I'm presenting and what you will see and the interactions that you're having with me. If you have any answers or questions for me, please put them into the live chat section. We have Bennett on the other end that is monitoring for me. And also, I would like for you to remember that to be respectful and be kind with other people who are online with us at this time. I am going to be teaching you the science of the immune system and the science of how our cells work. And I will try my best to answer all the questions that are here. However, if I do not answer your questions within the time frame of these programs, you can send an email to us at vaccines@sciencenorth.ca, and I will answer questions after the program has finished. As you can see on here, there's a code here for the Mentimeter. So you can go to www.menti.com and put in the code. You can also scan the QR code that you see on the screen here. If you have if you have a computer open, you can use this on 2 browser windows at the same time, or you could do it with a second device. Before we go into the Mentimeter, I just want to do a little bit of an introduction. We are going to be learning about the immune system and just a brief sort of summary of what the immune system is. So the immune system is really important. It is essentially our body. And if you look at this image that you can see on here, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so that we can see it. As if you look at the image here, you'll see that it involves many different parts that are coordinated together, working on many different levels, and it's what's going to keep us healthy. So what we're going to do is we are going to have like a little survey using the Mentimeter. I'm going to stop sharing this, and we are going to move on to the quiz. So just give me a little bit of time to start sharing my screen here. And this is our logo for our campaign, Give Vaccines a Shot. I'm going to advance to the slide that I showed you before. All right, so here's our Menti slide. So if you can either scan the QR code or go to the website and log in, that would be great. And the way this one is working, so I don't know if you've ever used Mentimeter before, it's a little bit like Kahoot. You will get answers on your screen, on your second screen. This is more of a survey. It's not a competition, so you are not going to get points, but you will get a chance to let everybody know what you already know about the immune system, and just make sure that you read the questions. So some of the questions will give you the opportunity to answer more than one at a given time, and also it's just a way to see how much you know before we get into the nitty-gritty of learning stuff. First question for you are, what are some words that you can use to describe the immune system? So when I say immune system, what are the first three words that pop into your head when you're talking about, when you're thinking about the immune system? What does it do? What are some things that you might have heard? We definitely have heard a lot more about immune system nowadays than we probably ever thought about it. But what are some things that pop into your head when you hear immune system? So protection. This is the word of the week. Everybody has been putting protection down, right? So your body, immune, blood. The immune system. I do think it is interesting because it is a very complex system. And I'm a biologist, and I have learned so much about the immune system that I didn't know before. Fascinating. Protection. Our body, for sure. The immune system is essentially us. It is an amazing thing, and all living things have a way of protecting themselves from outside invaders. Just going to give us a few more because I did see that there were more people signed up than have actually filled in this. And as this goes, so as I progress through the Mentimeter survey, I think if you've started late, you can always put the code in. It's at the top. And then you can always, if you haven't answered a particular slide, you can answer it and then move on to the next slide as we are. All right, so protection seems to be there. I think that this is probably meant to be lungs. And certainly in the context of a respiratory disease, we are definitely thinking about lungs when it comes to the immune system. All right, so our first question is a true-false question. So do all living organisms have DNA? True or false? What do we think? What makes a living organism a living organism? This is an interesting thing because some non-living organisms also have DNA in them. All right. So we've got, most people have answered true, and that is the correct answer. So all living organisms have DNA in them. So that is the instructions that basically our cells use to create everything. So if you're in grade 11, you might not be able to do this. So this is interesting. I haven't actually used this one. I want you to order the flow of genetic material using these 4 words. So what do you think happens first? So does translation, replication, transcription, or repair happen first? This is the order. So put them in the best order. So you've got a sort of a ranking of what you of these 4 words, and it's up to you to sort of rank it in what you think it is. And so what do you think is the order that things actually happen? So we've got, this is a complicated thing. So this has to do with thinking about the DNA that's inside of our cells. So what's the first thing that happens in DNA? Is replication the first thing that happens? And then is like translation. So translation is when we make proteins, right? And transcription is when we are making a copy of the DNA so that it's going to go outside of the nucleus so that we can make the proteins. And then repair is something that's going to happen afterwards. All right. So this is actually, and I can't give you because this is a ranking and the way that the Menti works. Replication is what happens when our cells replicate each other. So we replicate, and usually, hopefully, if there's no errors, you're going to get like a complete copy of it. Transcription should be the next one, right? So transcription, it has to happen before translation. Transcription is when we take our DNA and there's an enzyme that makes a copy of it in the form of RNA, which is, so DNA is deoxyribose nucleic acid, and RNA is ribose nucleic acid, and it's the one that goes outside of your nucleus and goes into the cytoplasm of your cell. And then translation happens, and then repair is sort of after that. So repair is the kind of the subsidiary that happens afterwards. But most of you got the fact that replication happens first. But see, this is the important thing. So translation is definitely going to happen after you do transcription, because you need to get a copy of RNA before you can translate it into proteins. Where is the DNA found in our cells? So if you've been listening to my my discourse, me talking here, you probably know where it's found. Is it found in the ribosomes? Is it found in the Golgi bodies? Is it found in the nucleus, or is it found in the mitochondria? So when I'm talking about the DNA, I'm talking about the DNA that almost all of our cells have. So which part of the cell is it found in? Because there are other types of DNA in our cells. So some of you who are answering mitochondria are not incorrect, because mitochondria do have their own DNA. But for the most part, in our cells, we are eukaryotic cells, the DNA is located in the nucleus. Purpose of the immune system is to help pathogens invade our body. Is that what the purpose is? Is it to fight off sickness and outside invaders? Is it to make you want to stay in bed all day? Or is it to give you headaches? So the last two are kind of like symptoms if you're sick. So maybe it's something that your immune system might do to your body. But is that the purpose of your immune system? What do we think the purpose of our immune system is? And it looks like most of you have answered fight off sickness and outside invaders, and that is correct. So the purpose of our immune system, one of the main things is to distinguish between our own cells and outside invaders, right? We don't want our immune system to attack our own cells for the most part. We want it to attack things that are coming in from the outside. And we want it to fight off sickness once we do get an outside invader. So what are the four main types of germs? That was a typo there, or pathogens, right? So here you have a choice of 4 out of these 6 here. So is lymphocytes a type of germ or pathogen? Viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites, or phagocytes? Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a clue, and being in grade 11 and 12, you might already know how to do this with science words, but if you take your complicated science words and you break it down into the pieces and you know what each of the pieces mean, you can actually figure out what words mean. And so looking at the words that have cyte in them, for example, lymphocyte and phagocyte, you will actually, if you know what cyte means cells, right? So cells are what we would find inside of us, right? Lymphocytes and phagocytes. So if I'm looking for the 4 main types of germs, do we think that the lymphocytes and the phagocytes fall into that category, or is it the 4 in the middle? Let's take a look. And we are correct. So these were the ones that got the most counts to them. So viruses, bacteria, fungi, and parasites. Another thing that we could say are protists. So an example of like a parasite or a protist that is a pathogen would be the protist that causes malaria. It's not a bacteria. bacterium. It's not a fungus. It's not a virus. It is a small single-celled organism that causes illness in people. Can you treat a viral infection with antibiotics? Is this a true statement or is this a false statement? What do you think? Oh, we're getting close here. We've got a lot of people right now of the people that have answered. Oh, all right. So this is an important thing to know, and I'm going to mention this a little bit later on in our program, but there are things that are living organisms and there are things that are not living organisms that are part of the pathogens. And if you look at the word antibiotics, you can break that down as well too. So anti means against and bio, living. So just take a look and think about it, right? So a viral infection cannot be treated with antibiotics. And I will get into this a little bit later. If you know the answer as to why, you can put it in the comments. The immune system is made up of, we have a choice of 3 here. You can write up to 3 things here. So that means that probably 3 of the 4 things make up our immune system. So is it made up of cells, tissues, organs, or microbes? What do we think? So microbes, another word that we might use for germs or pathogens. Not all microbes are pathogens. Microbes are basically microscopic living organisms. And like I said, not all of them are pathogenic. All right. Looks like most of you got this one as well too. So the really cool thing about the immune system is that it's made up of all of these things. It's made up of cells, it's made up of tissues, it's made up of organs. The main components that we talk about when we talk about the immune system is we often talk about the cells of the immune system, but they are created in an organ and sometimes in tissues. And so it's important to know that the immune system is made up of those 3 things that are found in our bodies. As part of the immune system, white blood cells fight germs. What's another name for white blood cells? So if you remember from 2 slides back, I was talking about breaking down the words. So take a look at the words there and try and figure out which one of those words do you think means white blood cells. So the choices we have are coronavirus, leukocytes, glands, and websites. So as part of our immune system, we're looking for cells that are part of our immune system. And do we see a word here that ends in cytes, which means cells? We do. We have leukocytes here. So another word for white blood cells is leukocytes. Lymphocytes as well, they're white blood cells. There are quite a few names for white blood cells. There are quite a few different varieties of white blood cells, but one of the names that we use for white blood cells is leukocytes. Leukocytes are found all over the body, including in this organ of the immune system. So of these 4 organs here, which one do you think is an important organ in the immune system? Is it the heart, the spleen, the kidney, or the brain? Mostly we consider the heart part of our circulatory system. It does pump our blood around and white blood cells are in our blood. So that would be a good guess as well too. The spleen, the kidney. Does anybody know what part of which organ system the kidney is part of? It's part of your excretory system. You will, if you were in grade 12, might study it as part of the homeostasis unit and looking how the kidney filtrates our blood. And then the brain is part of our nervous system. Oh, I think most people got this one. Spleen. So the spleen is the organ, is one of the organs involved in our immune system. It's kind of, it's located a little bit above your stomach. What does it mean to be immune? Does it mean you are infected? Does it mean you won't get voted off the island? This is a Survivor reference. I don't even watch Survivor, so I think it's still on. Does it mean you're more likely to get sick, or does it mean your body is prepared and protected against severe illness? So what do you think? Which one of these 4 answers is a good way to define what it means to be immune? Again, I think most of you are figuring it out. So immunity, in the context of our immune system and our bodies, means that your body is prepared and protected against severe illness. And we will get into this a little bit later about the fact that it doesn't necessarily mean that you will not get sick or you will not get infected, but it does protect you. When someone's immune system overreacts to something harmless, like food or dust, it is called an allergy, overreactus maximus, a sneeze, or the measles. Now, we might do this when we are reacting. We might sneeze. But what do we call this phenomenon? So I mentioned earlier that the job of our immune system, one of the big jobs, is to distinguish between our own cells and outside cells, and that the immune system is there to protect us against outside invaders. But not all outside invaders or outside molecules that come into our body are harmful. For example, food, for the most part, if it's not poisonous, is not going to harm us. And so if our body reacts as though it's a pathogen, this is what we call an allergy, right? It gives us symptoms, makes our nose run, makes us sneeze. Dust as well. I wear a mask if I'm dusting in my house, if it's super dusty, just so that I don't have to worry about getting allergy symptoms. And most of you have answered this correctly. So yes, when our immune system is reacting to something that is mostly harmless or usually harmless, we call that an allergy. Which of the following things will not help your immune system? So which won't help your immune system? Exercising, eating wholesome foods, getting enough sleep, or playing video games? Which one do you think is not going to help your immune system? Now, often we hear the term boosting our immune system. And if you go back to the talk about the allergy, we don't want our immune system to be boosted, because an overactive immune system means that it's going to react to things that are not harmful to us. We want our immune system to be in balance. We want it to react appropriately. We want it, if it doesn't react, then we will get very sick. If it overreacts, we will also have like crazy symptoms as well too. So things like exercising, eating wholesome foods, and getting enough sleep will actually keep you healthy. And that means that hopefully your immune system will be healthy as well too. Video games, on the other hand, not so much. Now, in the sense that maybe if you play video games, it de-stresses you. So that would be a good thing, because when you're less stressed, then your immune system functions better. But for the most part, video games are not going to help your immune system. Getting these when you are young helps your immune system fight off diseases. So is that vitamins, bandages, vaccines, or braces? And I've already mentioned what the initiative that we've launched here at Science North and what we're talking about and how we're sort of relating it to the immune system. So most of you should be able to get the right answer here. And when I'm talking about braces, I'm talking about the ones that, do you get braces on? Some people get them when they're young on their teeth. Does that help your immune system fight off diseases? So the correct answer that I was looking for is vaccines. If you put down vitamins, vitamins are good, but if we have a wholesome diet for eating proper foods, we should be getting the right amount of vitamins, and we don't actually need to have much more. I mean, my mom's a nurse, and she used to tell me to drink lots of orange juice and take vitamin C when I had a cold. But if I had a healthy diet, I probably had enough vitamin C as it was. So vaccines, on the other hand, they are this technology where scientists have figured out how to use our immune system to be prepared for when the real thing comes in. So do vaccines only work against viruses? So think back to the 4 types of pathogens that we have. Do you think that we have vaccines only against one type of pathogen, only against viruses, or do we have vaccines against multiple types of pathogens? And it looks like most of you are saying that this is false, which is awesome, because when I was your age, I thought that vaccines were only against viruses in my head. That was my thought process. And I was not right, because we have vaccines that work against bacteria. We have vaccines that work against toxins that the bacteria create. They're working on a vaccine against malaria. So malaria is caused by a protist, right? A single-celled organism. And so vaccines work against very different types of pathogens. And finally, what do vaccines do? So these are some statements of what vaccines do. So do they introduce a decoy antigen? So antigen is like a protein. It's like a foreign substance that your body's going to recognize. So do they introduce a decoy antigen to your immune system? Do they help your body prepare to fight the real pathogen? Do they help your body react faster when infected? Or do they make you sick with the disease? So you have the option here of picking several answers here. And I see a lot of people have picked the middle two. And the answer are the first three. So the way the vaccines work is they're going to introduce a kind of a fake version, a weakened version, or even like I said, a fake, like a decoy version of an antigen to your immune system, which helps your body prepare for the real fight when it actually has it. And it enables your body to react faster, which is why vaccines are an amazing technology. We are, for the rest of this program here, we are going to just sort of do a little bit of a review of some of the things about cells and about pathogens. And then in a subsequent program, we are going to get into the actual, like how the immune system works and how it fights and how it recognizes pathogens and how it works to protect your body. All right, so I need to stop sharing. Oops. And I need to get back to this one. Hold on a second here. All right. So it looks like most of you did really, really well on that survey. And if you didn't get everything right, that's fine, because we are going to learn about the immune system. And we are going to learn about this in subsequent things. So as I said, the important thing about our immune system is that it recognizes outside invaders. And so examples of foreign substances you can see here, we have things like viruses, the protist. This is the protist that causes malaria. These are tetanus bacteria. These are E. coli bacteria. This is the virus that causes measles, and this is the polio virus. And our immune system is trying to basically prevent these things from coming into our bodies. And then if they are in our bodies, basically neutralizing them so that they don't make us sick. So pathogen, pathos means disease, gen means born of. So pathogen means disease causing. So when we talk about pathogens, these are things that are going to cause disease. And in the context of these pathogens, not all pathogens are living organisms. So for example, viruses are not living organisms. There's certain things that living organisms do, and viruses don't do them. And so as a biologist, we do not consider viruses living organisms. So living things, living organisms, reproduce on their own. They're made up of cells, right? So they could be one cell, like a bacterium, or they could be multicellular, like our cells. But living things are able to reproduce on their own. And viruses need our cells to make copies of themselves. They need other cells to reproduce. It could be our cells. It could be the cells of a bacterium. It could be cells of a plant, right? So viruses can infect lots of different types of cells. Living things are able to collect and use energy. Viruses are too small to collect their own energy. So they basically steal the energy and use the machinery of the cells that they infect. And living things are able to keep things stable. Viruses have no way of controlling their inside environment. So they use our cells to make copies of themselves, and they need to get into our cells to do that. So if you take a look at this diagram here, you're going to see that we have our virus here. And so it has receptors on the outside, and it needs to basically get into our cell. And the point of the immune system is going to stop the virus from getting into our cells. So we need to have antibodies either stuck onto it or some sort of a cell that's going to basically attack the virus so that it doesn't get into our cells. Because if it does get into our cells, basically our cells are going to be used up, and then they're not going to be happy after that. Our cells are going to die when they've been infected. Ribosomes are the organelle that viruses are using to make copies of themselves. So this is really, really important. So the virus comes in, and depending on what kind of virus it is, the SARS-CoV-2 virus is an RNA virus. It basically takes our ribosomes, right? So ribosomes are an organelle that make protein, and it puts its messenger RNA in there, and it says, okay, make the proteins and make these components, and then make a virus of our cells, right? And so the ribosome is reading the messenger RNA from the virus to make copies of itself. And we, scientists, have come up with a way to basically use the same technology that cells use to make proteins, and that the viruses are using to make proteins. We've created mRNA vaccines where our cells will make it's a decoy spike protein that is going to prep our immune system. One really cool thing that, and as I was learning about trying to make this presentation, is that, I mean, I knew this. There's a difference between bacterial cells and our own cells. So bacteria are prokaryotic. They do not have a nucleus. And so that means their DNA is free floating inside of their cytoplasm, right? It's just floating around there. Our cells have a nucleus, and our DNA is inside the nucleus. And so our DNA is protected from most viruses, because most viruses, at least especially SARS-CoV-2 virus, because it's an RNA virus. There are some viruses that can go into the nucleus. For example, the HIV virus does do that, but currently the SARS-CoV-2 one does not. And so our DNA is inside the nucleus and it's protected. But because bacteria have their DNA sort of free floating out there, viruses are able to get in and sort of get into the DNA of the bacteria. And also the other thing, bacteria are usually haploid, which means they only have one copy of a gene, and we are diploid, which means we have two copies of genes. And so if you only have one copy of a gene, this means that it's a lot easier to change the genetic makeup of something. But if you have two copies and you need like both of them to be expressed at the same time, then that's another thing that's really, really an important thing to know about the current virus that we are dealing with right now. And we talked about in the quiz about the whole transcription thing. So this is another thing that is really important with the current virus that's happening right now. So our DNA, which is inside of our nucleus, is going to be transcribed into messenger RNA. The messenger RNA goes out into the cytoplasm of the cell, and then it goes to the ribosome where it is translated. So transcription always happens before translation, and the DNA information doesn't go the other way, right? So our messenger RNA doesn't normally get turned into DNA. It is possible, but it's not normally going to happen into our cells. And so the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is an RNA virus, is not going in and changing our DNA. And same thing with the vaccines, which are made up of messenger RNA. They're not going in, they're not going back into our DNA and changing it. So what happens is we are using the code of messenger RNA to make proteins. And proteins are a string of amino acids, right? And so as the string of amino acids gets longer, there's different types of bonding that happen, and it creates different shapes. proteins are basically the things that run all of our cells and run our bodies. And so messenger RNA and ribosomes are super important in our cell function because of the creation of bacteria. Wrapping up this session, it is really important to emphasize that there is a major difference between bacteria and viruses as pathogens, and also how the bacteria sort of multiply within our body. So we have bacteria that live with us. We have a microbiome. We have lots of bacteria that live within us. We need them. They give us they actually give us nutrients and help us digest our food and all of that. But sometimes we get infected with pathogenic bacteria. And for example, E. coli. E. coli is not a great bacterium to have inside of us. It makes us sick. And bacteria are capable of multiplying very quickly. Their cells will reproduce very, very quickly, a lot faster than we can catch up. And so if we do get a bacterial infection, we can fight a bacterial infection with drugs that are called antibiotics. So anti against biotic living things. Most of these were created by other bacteria to fight against sort of like competing bacteria, right? So they create bacteria so that they have sort of a space around them where other colonies will not invade, right? So it was created. So we basically took back antibiotics that were created by one bacterium and use it against a different one. Viruses are not living, so we can't use antibiotics to cure a viral infection. We have to either wait on our immune system to sort of get strong enough to get rid of the infected viral cells, or we prevent ourselves from getting infected with the virus in the first place. So viruses cannot be cured with an antibiotic. And this is why our immune system is super, super important, right? So our immune system is a defense against germs, but like right off of the first level of it, it's a physical barrier. As I've said several times, and as a few people mentioned in our little Wordle there, our immune system is us, right? And so the first layer of our immune system is our skin as a physical barrier to stop stuff from coming in. We do have holes, our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, but within those we have substances that are going to slow down or even prevent things from getting into our body. We've got tears, we've got snot and saliva inside of our mouths and our nose, and we have stomach acid as well. And so these things are going to stop pathogens from coming into our body. We can help prevent things from coming into our body. From a young age, our parents tell us to wash our hands before we eat our food, right? Because if we touch a bunch of stuff and we get pathogens on our hands and then we eat, we're going to ingest it. If we touch our eyes and our nose, if we wash our hands regularly, we remove those pathogens. So that's a really important way of preventing pathogens from coming into our bodies. Another really important way is right now, when we have a high prevalence of a respiratory pathogen, is wearing a mask, wearing good quality masks to stop them from coming in. But we do occasionally get, we do occasionally get pathogens that do come into our body, and then that's when our cells are going to get to work. So subsequent programs for this level, we're going to learn how our immune system works and how it prevents us from getting too sick, and how vaccines sort of fit into that. Just before we leave, I just want to let you know that as we have funding from Public Health Agency of Canada, just want to let you know that the views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the views of the Public Health Agency of Canada, but Science North is here to give you the science of the immune system and the science of how vaccines work. If you have any questions, be sure to put them down either in the commentaries, or you can send us an email at vaccines@sciencenorth.ca. We would greatly appreciate it if you could fill out the post-program survey. Bennett has put the link into the chat here. This will help us guide the way that the subsequent programs will be going. And also, if you check out our website, Give Vaccines a Shot, you will find a post activity that you can do as a class to sort of increase your knowledge about how DNA transcription works. And I hope you enjoyed your time, and hopefully we'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you so much for joining.